Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next session here. This is going to be excellent. I've got my good friend here with us, Leslie Whittam. She's
Woo!
an instructor with Nina and is already pumped. I love it. This is excellent.
Mhm.
And her session for today is teaching the adult learner answering the why. Take it away, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I see that people have already started answering the poll that I asked. So awesome. I know some of you are like fully staffed. What the heck is that? So, and the reason I asked that is because what we're going to be talking about here in this session really plays into the training that we're going to do with our new people. So settle in. We're going to be talking about not just the new people, but us as well, and how we best learn. And the fact that you are a part of this conference today and yesterday and the day before and the day before that is awesome. So I'm glad that y'all are here. We're going to talk a lot about how you best learn. So know that there's going to be a segment here where I'm going to ask you to take a quiz. So if you want to grab a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen or just something that you can write with, a crayon, whatever your method of choice is, that's fine. But I want you to also have an understanding of how you best learn, because that's going to mean that you can teach somebody better as they are coming into your center. So, as you know, Dare to Be Great 2, whoop, whoop. Awesome. Thank you, Ricardo and Leah and everybody who's been a part of this. It is phenomenal that we get a chance to do this. I'm looking down at the numbers. We've got, almost 1,800 people who are doing this. And if you don't feel it now, I hope you feel it by the end of today. And if you watch this on demand, and I see nobody said anything about a test, Leslie. I didn't study. Don't worry. But the fact that we've got 1,800 people here who do the job that we do or are passionate about public safety and 911 is just, I hope you get a lot of energy from that, because I know that I do. As we go through this, and because I am giving you that quiz, I also want this to be something that you can take back to your centers and use at your agency. So I will give you my contact information a couple times during this presentation, so you can email me for the slide deck, and I will be more than happy to share it with you whenever you need it. All right. And I do have the chat open. So, hey, Stephanie, I see people connecting, which is fabulous. And what I encourage is, even if you don't have a question for me, that you are keeping in contact with each other over in that chat section. I know that the last Dare to Be Great, I made a lot of contacts and it was awesome. So please make this interactive. If you do have questions of me, we are going to, Leah is in the background, going to grab some of those, and we will hopefully get to those toward the end of the session. So let's get this going. All right. So what I am hoping to do in this short time that we have together is talk to you about the adult learner, because, and maybe your mileage may vary, but most of the people that we work with are adults. And we all learn a little bit differently, but there's some key factors that I want us to focus on when we're talking about the adult learner and how we can better make that process from going from a normal person, you remember what that was, to a fully fledged 911 PSAP, dispatcher, call taker, emergency communication specialist, whatever your title is, that there's a process, and we need to respect and understand the needs of the adult learner. We're also going to talk about 3 learning styles. Now, you can go on Google and Google learning styles, and there are as many as 7 sometimes that are discussed. I'm going to focus on, I know, Lori, you're like, normal, what's that? Yeah, that ship has sailed. But I'm going to talk about the 3 primary learning styles and how you probably know how you best learn already, but maybe you don't have a label to it. So that's what that assessment is going to be. So you can figure out, okay, this is the way I learn, and then I can train someone else. And finally, how we can, now that we know what kind of learner we are, or perhaps maybe what kind of learner our trainees are, that how we can best present information to them so they can learn all the stuff that we need to learn. And If you haven't really thought about the knowledge that each one of you has in this brain of ours, it's amazing. It is truly amazing. And we'll talk about that as we go on. So a little bit about who I am. Leslie Whittam. I am an emergency number professional through NINA. I'm also a graduate of CMCP. So that's my professional side of the hat as a trainer. I am also a dispatch supervisor with a smallish agency in Southern California. I have been there for 29 years. So, long time. I started as a reserve police officer, and because California does things a little bit differently, we were a consolidated center, and then our agency said, hey, we would like to have our own communication center. So Leslie, you've been working the streets for a while. You know the codes, you know all this other stuff. Maybe you could come in and work in dispatch while we train other people. Sure. So I went into dispatch and never went out. So it has certainly been my calling. I am an instructor with NINA, the National Emergency Number Association, and we'll talk about that as we go through. I am also part of the EAB, or the Education Advisory Board. So what NINA is and what NINA does is an opportunity for all of us to connect and really get engaged with training and education and having that voice to kind of shape where this profession is going. If any of you have been in this job longer than 5 years and you think back what it was on day one, it's significantly different, right? And things are changing so quickly that sometimes it's a little bit scary. And, you know, maybe people are making decisions who don't work in your communication center. Does that work? And so this is an opportunity for you through NINA to get involved in some working committees and some working groups and network with people and say, hey, you know what? I'm excited about where we're going, but I think maybe we need to kind of focus our, attentions on this. And NINA gives you an opportunity to do that. Another thing that I'm involved in, and you've seen some of our other presenters, they are also a part of We Speak Dispatch. We've got Doug Showalter from Showalter and Company and Joe McCarver from Goldline, 911 Goldline Training. You're going to meet Glenna Oliver later. She's a part of the 911 Wellness Project and is big into peer support. We all basically get together on a Sunday and just talk about dispatch stuff. And we do it online on Facebook and as well as through podcasts. And it's 15, 20 minutes of people who work in our centers talking about dispatch stuff. And so I'll give you a little bit more information as we go along. We've got a presentation later today that is going to be awesome. We have a very special guest. So please join us for that. There is my email address, leslie911enp@gmail.com. I'll give it to you again at the end of this presentation. But if you need to contact me for any reason, reach out and we can connect that way. All right. So why the heck do we care about this topic? Why is this important? Well, we've got new employees entering our centers, right? Because based on the poll, there's a very small percentage of us who actually have a fully staffed dispatch center. And it's challenging, right? Because, and we kind of joke about that transition from normal to what we are now. But really think about, when you first started, and I always, I joke about in class that, when you first got this job, the focus was when somebody said, well, why do you want to be a dispatcher? Oh my God, I get to help people. I love people so much and I want to help them every day. So fast forward to whatever day you are in your profession, how much of us have lost sight of wanting to help people? So that transition from normal to where we are now can be taxing. And all of the knowledge that we learned from day one to day 10,001 is significant. And the way we share that knowledge or convey that knowledge is challenging because sometimes what we do is, well, sit down, shut up. This is the way we've always done it. If you don't like it, there's a door. And we don't really take into consideration the person on the other side of that training program. So we've got to recognize that we have to, if we want to be ever fully staffed, take care of the people who are coming in. We also have people who have been in the room for a long time. And thankfully, there's things like this where you don't need to leave your center to get some training, but sometimes this is it. And there is no ongoing training. And so we've got to recognize that there are new things that are happening in our profession that we've got to provide some information to our tenured employees. I'm not going to say old, but tenured. And then finally, there's you. You are responsible for your own level of knowledge and training. And though I think sometimes we tend to wait for our supervisors or administration or somebody else, the magical clouds, to say, oh, Leslie, you need to go to training. Not true. You have a responsibility to make sure that every single day you're learning something new. Every single day, there's a little bit of knowledge that you place in your brain because at some point, you're going to need it. And that is only because you have invested the time and the attention to make yourself better. So that's why this topic is important. So let's jump in. Here we go. Teaching and learning strategies, how and why adults learn. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the difference between learning versus training and how that needs to be a concept that we can all understand, because learning should be every day. We should be learning something every day. And it's what, as an individual, I do. I learn. And the way I learn, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but learning is what an individual does, while training is something they receive. And I don't want to say training is something that's done to them, because that sounds a little bit weird, but training is something that we receive. And sometimes, perhaps maybe, and raise your hand or put a comment in or whatever, you've been sent to a class that you're sitting there for 8 hours going, well, that's 8 hours of my life I'm never getting back. Because you didn't have any interest in the topic, or maybe the presenter didn't connect with you, or some other reason, and you just, you got to work one day and you went to your mailbox and they said, oh, I guess I'm going to class today. So the difference is you have to take a vested interest in your own learning, while training is something that is done to you, or something that you receive through your center, through your agency. So knowing those two things, just that little bit of information may change your approach as you start to look at your training program, look at your CTO program, and really figure out, okay, what is our objective here? I was talking to one of our CTOs yesterday when I went back to work, and we were talking about some of the challenges when you're training somebody new. Because, for example, the CTO had told the trainee, hey, if you've got somebody in the lobby that the officers are going to have to make contact with, and this particular person had a warrant, and there were several people in the lobby, she told the trainee, okay, you need to ask for a clothing description. So when the officers walk into the lobby, they know, okay, who am I looking for? Okay, there's my guy. So, okay, fine. So then a couple days later, there's a different call for service about somebody who's in the lobby to just drop off found property. And the trainee starts to ask, okay, well, what is your clothing description? And the CTO's like, I don't care what they're wearing. But it was that challenge, because the trainee didn't understand the difference between, hold on, I need to know what somebody who has a warrant looks like so the officer can go directly to them, versus somebody who's just in the lobby to turn in some found property. And it really got me to think about, okay, training versus learning. We can train someone to be a dispatcher, but how long was it for you before you really felt like, I know this job. I know what I'm supposed to do. I get it. Because sometimes all we're giving them is information and do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. But that understanding, that knowledge, that really true, oh, I get it now, doesn't happen until we really learn the job. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's keep going. All right, so adult learners. So Malcolm Knowles, he was a pioneer in adult education, popularized, wow, need more coffee, the concept of the 5 teaching strategies for adults. And if you do any research online or if you read some books into educational design, his name is always going to come up as one that really started to look at training adults differently than when we were in school as kids. Because there are different approaches that are specific to being a grown-up that we need to take into consideration. So his 5 strategies are that adults need to understand why something's important. We need to kind of know that. Now, remember, and maybe some of you have kids who you're teaching right now. Good on you. And you don't really sit down and say to a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, okay, now it's really important that we learn how to do this because yada, 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 yada. It's just sit down. Here we go. We're going to learn how to read. We're going to learn how to do math. We got to go. And we don't really give them the why. Adults need to know the why. Adults also have to have the freedom to learn in their own way. Now, think about, again, with your own kids or kids that you may have in your life where they don't really get a choice of how they learn. It is they walk into a classroom, the desks are set up, they sit down, and the teacher's standing in the front of the room. And maybe for some of us older people, our classrooms were set up in rows. Now classrooms kind of tend to be in pods. But there's the child doesn't get to go in and say, well, this isn't really working for me, so can we do it a little bit differently? But adults need to have that freedom to learn. They need to be able to create their own strategies. Because, moving on to the third topic, their learning is experiential, which means that most of the new concepts that I am going to learn as an adult, I have some sort of experience or some sort of reference in my life that I can look back and go, oh, okay, now I get it. So adults, when they come into that learning environment, we need to understand to frame it into how they can best relate it to their experience. Timing is important. When we do training and how that interacts with what it is that they have in their life is vital. So we've got to pay attention to the timing of our training. And then finally, that learning is positive and encouraging. So all of those of you like me, when we were in training and we had people beating on the back of our chairs or yelling at us or making us so stressed out that we didn't know what day it was, we don't do that anymore. That is not the best way to train people. So we've got to create situations where we can come to the table and really be excited about the process of learning. If you see me kind of looking off a little bit, I don't know if there's somebody that's trying to break into my house or that there's some random cat outside. But, if you see something, you've got my email address, call the authorities. Okay. So adults need to learn and understand why something is important. We are motivated to learn if we understand the benefits of learning, which means we also have to understand what could happen if we don't learn. Okay, so benefits of learning might include that you're going to be a better 911 telecommunicator or an emergency communications specialist, that you are going to be able to provide a level of officer and responder safety to the people that you serve, that when your citizens call you, you're going to have the answers to their questions. So that builds that community engagement. Okay, I got it. And if you don't learn, here's the bad news, that perhaps maybe you are going to be given an opportunity to pursue other career interests, meaning you're not going to be in the emergency communications specialist world. Okay, if you don't learn this new topic, this job is going to be very difficult for you. If you don't understand why officer safety and responder safety is important, then you're a liability now to your agency. So we've got to really focus on, hey, this is why we are doing it this way. which means that as you start to create your learning or teaching or training program, that we've got to start by telling our employees why this is important. Sometimes we just forget and we say, well, okay, it says today that this is what we're going to work on, let's do it. And we don't really answer that why question. So adults have the freedom to learn in their own way. And like I've alluded to a couple times, there are 3 primary learning styles that facilitate understanding. Now, when we get into the assessment here pretty quickly, once you get your score, you may find that you are very similar in all 3, which is awesome, because depending on what it is that you're trying to learn, you may approach it a little bit differently. Now, some people are off the charts one way, and it's also not meant to say, well, then, gosh, I better stop reading because I'm not a visual learner. No, that's not what it means. It just means that you have a preference, and especially when the topic is challenging or the topic is something that you're not familiar with, that you're going to default to that primary learning style that you have. Now, like we said before, learning is experiential, which means that we all have life experiences that shape our learning process. So, for example, it's super simple to tell a trainee or tell somebody new to your center, hey, customer service is important. Okay. But until we start to have a conversation that dives a little bit deeper into why customer service is important, and then maybe ask them, hey, tell me about an experience that you had before you got this job where you had a great customer service experience, and have them share that with you. And then say, okay, tell me about a situation where maybe that customer service experience wasn't so great. How did that make you feel? What was that difference? And when you had that bad experience, how many people did you tell? Did you go on social media? Did you post, I'm never going to blank business ever again, and you told all your friends, and so on, and so on, and so on? So get them to start to think about their own experience and then go, oh, okay, so if I give good customer service while I am on the job as a 911 professional, then that community engagement is going to build. Or I'm going to have a better rapport with somebody because I've established that relationship, versus now you've got complaints that are coming in or people posting on social media how horrible your agency is. So we've got to really understand that as we learn as adults, we need to be actively participating. We've got to be engaged in the process. All right. So the timing is right for adults to learn. So chances are, there's not a big school bus that drives up to your agency first thing in the morning and drops off 5 people and says, good luck, you're going to be dispatchers today. No. Our adult learners in our communication center went through a very comprehensive process to get hired into your agency, right? They are primed for learning. They are there because they are passionate about the process that they just went through to become a member of your team. So we've got to take that learning, we've got to take that opportunity to really help them to understand how this learning process is going to benefit them as part of their employment. Same thing with your ongoing training. We've got to recognize, even if it's a topic that you're like, oh geez, what the heck does this have to do with anything that I do? If you can pick out a couple things to take back to your center, then you have that process of, okay, maybe it's not my favorite topic, but it's something still that I'm going to need to pay attention to because it's important to my job. Finally, that process is positive and encouraging. Best learning situations for our employees and for us is that we learn best when we are supported and encouraged. So there's a book that I reference in a lot of my classes, and if you've read it, great. If you need it, I'll give you the information as we go through. But it's The Happiness Advantage by Sean Acor. And he's got a YouTube channel and a real quick YouTube video. And basically his whole premise is positive psychology. And he talks about how when our brains are positive, we are much more open to learning than when our brains are at negative, neutral, or stressed. So I'd like you to, for the next 24 hours, Yes, I'm giving you homework in a virtual conference. I want you to pay attention to how many exposures you have to negative, neutral, or stressful situations, which means if you've got the TV on, if you are working in your comm center today, if you are having conversations with people over the phone, basically, if you are alive, you're going to have some situations that are negative, neutral, or stressed. And what happens, especially in our profession, is we start to look at the world through those eyes, and that everything that we do and everything that we come in contact with and everyone that we talk to is negative. And so it becomes very easy to just, dismiss someone or say, oh, forget it. This is not even worth my time. And that negatively impacts our ability to learn. Now, think about when your new dispatch trainee walks into your center for the first time. Are you excited? Or are people like, I didn't even know they were starting today. And, they walk in and you're like, okay, well, sit down. I guess the supervisor is going to be in later. We don't have anything for you, so good luck. Have we already set that environment of, wow, this is not really great. This is neutral. This is even a little bit stressful. So we've got to create environments in our communication center that is positive and that they are supported and encouraged. Now, please hear me out. I'm not saying, oh my gosh, we've got to have balloons and we got to celebrate every single time they come to work on time. No, but we need to support and encourage them when those tough things happen. Because there are going to be times, and maybe you've seen it through situational leadership and that bell curve, that when our employees first start, they are that enthusiastic beginner. They can't wait to do the job because they have no idea what's about to happen. And so they are so excited. And then reality sets in. And you hand them a policy book or a training manual that's this big, and they say, okay, we're going to learn all of that. The eyes roll back in their head, and they're like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? So at that point, it's our jobs to become that cheerleader, that supporter, that encourager that says, hey, remember, none of us in this room and none of you out there were born dispatchers. We all went through this process. And my job as your trainer is to get you to the next level. All right. Now, second thing here on this slide, honest feedback with a focus on the positive builds that trust and commitment to the process. So we still have to be honest. We still have to say, yeah, that wasn't really good, but we're going to do it better next time. And this is the way we're going to do it better next time. Don't sugarcoat it when things are going not so great, but also just don't let somebody go, wow, that sucked. See ya tomorrow. Come on back. It's going to be great. No, we've got to continue to encourage, focus on the positive. Hey, this was almost right. You were this close. And tomorrow we're going to set some goals and we're going to make sure that we do it right. Okay, so this is where the test begins. So grab a piece of paper, doesn't matter. It's a scratch piece, whatever, and something to write with. I'm going to read the questions out loud. So you don't necessarily have to pay attention to the slide, but there are 10 questions, super simple. Please, as we take this quiz, don't go, okay, well, what's the right answer? What should I be answering? What do I really think? No, it's knee-jerk reaction. Don't spend a lot of time thinking about what the answer should be, but what you actually do when you are faced with these situations. All right? Okay, here we go. Assessment question number 1. You're playing a video game and you want to learn how to score the most points. Do you 1, watch a video online. 2, figure it out by playing the game over and over again. Or 3, ask someone to explain it to you. All right. Number 2, you've just moved to a new area out of town and need to find the closest market. Do you 1, find and follow a map. 2, keep driving until you find it. And 3, ask someone to give you directions. All right. Question number 3. When you're not sure how to spell a word, which are you most likely to do? 1, write it down and see if it looks right. 2, trace the letters in the air. Or 3, spell it out loud to see if it sounds right. All right, question number 4. You make a new friend. How would you best memorize their phone number? 1, write it down. 2, practice dialing out the numbers. And 3, keep saying it aloud over and over. Question 5. What do you find most distracting when trying to study? 1, people walking past you. 2, an uncomfortable chair. Or 3, loud noises. Extra points if you can tell me the movie reference for loud noises. All right, getting back to the assessment. Question number 6. When you meet someone new, what are you most likely to remember about them? Number 1, their face. Number 2, what you did or where you were when you met them. Number 3, their name. Question 7. If you won a competition, which of these prizes would you most likely choose? Number 1, a poster or a picture of the event. Number 2, a game or a sports ball. Number 3, an MP3 or a music download. Question 8. You are about to buy a new cell phone. Other than price, what would help you choose which phone to purchase? Number 1, reading reviews online. Number 2, trying or testing it. And 3, the salesperson or a friend explaining the features. All right, question number 9. Which would you rather go to with a group of friends? Number 1, a movie. Number 2, an amusement park. Or number 3, a concert. All right, last question, number 10. You're doing a presentation. How do you prepare? 1, use flashcards. Number 2, practice delivering the presentation by doing or saying it over and over. Or number 3, record yourself and listen to it over and over. All right, so this is how you tell what kind of learner you are. So go back and see, add up how many 1s you answered, how many 2s you answered, and how many 3s you answered. So kind of go back, look at your score sheet. If you answered mostly 1s to those 10 questions, then you are a visual learner. That's me. If you answered mostly 2s, you are a kinesthetic learner. And then finally, if you answered mostly 3s, you are a, very good, Brian. You got it. You got extra points. He just answered the Anchorman. If you got mostly 3s, you are an auditory learner. All right, so curious, throw some chats out. Tell me, how many auditory learners do we have? How many kinesthetic learners? How many visual learners? Because it's interesting, and I bet our chats will play out. And if you tied in 2, that's okay. Like we said, it's sometimes, especially because of the jobs that we do as multitaskers, that we tend to be very good at a couple of them. So, wow, Ricardo's an auditory learner. Isn't that interesting? But very most often, wow, I need some coffee. Most of the time, we have very few auditory learners in our profession, which I just think is fascinating because most of everything we do is through listening, right? And talking. But we also have a lot of kinesthetic learners. And kinesthetic learners are the ones who kind of get up and they need to manipulate things. They're the fidget spinner people. They are, when you talk to them, they're spinning in their chair or they're clicking their pins and all that stuff. And then finally, the visual learners. All right, so here we go. So what does all of this mean? Okay, so if you are a visual learner, the best way for you to learn information or understand new concepts is through what we're doing here: PowerPoint presentations, videos and pictures, charts and graphs. You are a good reader. You know, if you are a visual learner, and I'm a visual learner, so I can relate, that sometimes when you're taking that test, that you can literally close your eyes and picture the text in the book that you need to know. You are good with demonstrations. You can watch somebody do something and then go, okay, I got it. And then you can go and do it. You use color to organize your notes. Now, for anyone who works with me, I'm in charge of the schedule, and I am very particular about the font color. And sometimes people will try to help me out by reprinting the schedule, and they choose the wrong font color, and I gotta redo the whole thing. Color means a lot to a visual learner. So maybe you're that visual learner that when you go to a class or you're trying to learn something, you've got the 46 different color highlighters. And everything means something different because of what color it's in. So those are my visual learners. Also, it's important to recognize that as a visual learner, and this is perfectly okay too, so don't feel bad if you do this, because I do it as well. I'll go to a class and I will take copious notes. Oh, I am so taking notes and never look at them again, because that's the way I process what's being heard, is I have to have the visual notes to reference it. All right, so those are my visual learners, rock solid. Okay, kinesthetic learners. For those of you who are more kinesthetic learners, you're good with role plays, that simulations where you get to have the hands-on with your training CAD, or you get to, I heard somebody in a class that I taught last week, let them sign into training CAD and try to break it. Have them just physically do everything. Again, for kinesthetic learners, just like our visual learners, it's the writing down things or the note-taking. We talk about in our CTO class that it's very tempting sometimes when you get a new trainee to just give them, okay, here's your training manual, learn it all. But instead, have them create their own, and we call it the training Bible. Give them the information that they need, but have the new trainee put their own book together, because how they organize it is going to be specific to them. And they're going to be physically, flipping those pages and using different strategies that maybe as somebody who's not a kinesthetic learner, we wouldn't necessarily think about. And again, it's that process of learning. Activities and ride-alongs and field trips and all of those things that get people out of the center and really starting to get immersed in what we want them to learn is a great tip for a kinesthetic learner. Play games. This is huge in when we train our new employees, is make it fun. Play a game. There is, and if you want the website, I will certainly send it to you, but this came to me from a class that I just taught in Memphis last week, where you can go online and make a Jeopardy game for free on the internet and make that process of learning more interactive. Just what you're doing here in this session by chatting and texting, it's hitting all of the different learning styles because you're engaged and you're active and you've got that process that you're involved in as you learn new topics. And finally, for my auditory learners, Ricardo, lectures is very good for somebody who is an auditory learner. Group discussions. So sitting in a small group, and especially those of you who are maybe from larger agencies where you may have a class of new employees, throw out a topic for the new employees to just kind of talk about. And they will very often come away with some aha moments that is more impactful for them because of the process of speaking about it and talking about it over you just handing them a piece of paper and saying, okay, here's the answer. Informal conversations. How many of us have learned a ton of new stuff just by sitting and listening to other people talk? Yeah, I've done that too. Stories and examples. So when you are sharing that new information, tell a story, make it impactful so that somebody goes, oh, okay, Now I understand what it is that you're trying to teach me. Listening to recordings, a big deal for us, especially in our job, is how many times do we have our trainees listen to audio tapes? It's much more impactful if you hear a tape, because an auditory learner can pick up on voice inflection and tone better than somebody maybe who is a kinesthetic learner or a visual learner. So have them listen to tapes and give them some specific things to listen for. So they're not just sitting there going, yeah, it sounded like a really bad call. But give them an opportunity to go, hey, when did you hear that the dispatcher made a bad choice? Or when did you hear that fear in the reporting party's voice inflection? And really give them some direct information that they should be listening for. And then finally, read out loud. If you have somebody who is needing to learn a policy or learn a new procedure, have them go into another room and read that information out loud, because then it's going right back into their brain as an auditory learner. So hopefully that's given you some ideas. And, as we go through this, what I hope that some of us, especially in the chat, can do is share some of those creative things that you've done in your center to kind of hit on all of these best practices. Because if we can hit on all three, we can better improve our trainees and our tenured employees and us, our ability to actually learn a new topic. So remember, we're not just talking about trainees, we're talking about our tenured employees, and we're talking about us as well. So, putting our knowledge to use. Now that you know this, and again, if you want this 10-question assessment, send me an email. I'll give you my contact information at the end, and I will certainly send this to you. But now that you know it, we got to do something with it. Because just knowing something is just knowing something. And we really need to take all of that dedication, because a lot of you are doing this at work, or you're taking time out of your busy schedule to sit in this session. So we've got to take what we've done and that commitment that we've made to learning and actually apply it. So here's some more information that you can kind of play into your own training program and your own learning style as you move forward. Just remember that really this is not dependent on any particular learning style. Even for our visual learners, we only retain 10% of what we see. We retain 30 to 40% of what we see and hear, and 90% of what we see, hear, and do, which basically means that you're not going to remember tomorrow what this slide looked like. Maybe if you're a visual learner and I tell you, okay, I'm going to call you tomorrow at about, I don't know, whatever time it is now in your time zone, and I'm going to ask you what this slide looked like. Chances are you're not going to be able to remember it. Now, if I were to ask you to look at this slide as I'm talking, as I'm giving you a description, okay, this slide had a square on the right-hand side with a profile in yellow of somebody's head, and then inside all of these different little icons. Okay, maybe as I'm describing it to you, and maybe as I'm telling you that information tomorrow, you could go, oh, okay, yeah, I remember what that looked like. Now, if I were to ask you, okay, what I want you to do is get into PowerPoint right now, and I want you to make a PowerPoint slide with this icon on it. So I need you to go into Google or go into whatever your search engine is and look for this icon. Okay, found it? Okay, now I want you to grab that icon and I want you to insert it into your PowerPoint slide. Okay, now you got it? Okay, now I want you to go into picture format, and so you can see how, okay, yeah, I saw it, big deal. But once I saw it, I heard the description, and I physically did it myself, the chances of me remembering what it was that I was talking about is going to go way up. So what we need to remember as we move forward from this session is remember who your audience is. Remember who we're trying to train and impact. So anticipate and answer the why question. Why do I have to learn this? Why is this important? Why do we care about geography? Why do we do X, Y, and Z? Because sometimes, and maybe you've had this happen at your agency, you'll have a trainee say, well, Why do we do it this way? Because we've always done it this way? Yeah, sometimes that's not going to be the best answer. So you may be presented with the why question, and it's going to force you to go, you know what? I don't know why we do it this way. We've always done it this way. I've been working here forever, and maybe I need to do some research myself. Again, use their life experience to build context. Help them understand from their own life experience, because we all bring something to the table. And if we can start to get to know what our trainees have experienced prior to them walking into our center, then we can use that experience to help them start to build context and help them start to understand why we are having them do what we're having them do, because then they'll start to realize, oh, okay, I get it, because this is what I did when I was in retail, or this is what I did when I worked the food service. So it helps them to start to identify how they can connect with what it is that you're trying to teach them. Use the variety of activities to encourage the retention of information. This isn't just a quiz and a test. It is talking about it, having fun games, giving them an opportunity to just verbalize something about their experience and training, so they can start to recognize, okay, because we do this too as tenured officers and tenured dispatchers and tenured field responders, that when something happens, what do? We want to debrief. We want to talk about it. We want to find out, okay, what was everybody doing? Because it gives us that bigger picture. It's exactly what we're talking about here when it's a new learning experience. Have people start to share their experience, because then it solidifies that concept that we're trying to convey. Anticipate the "I'm full" response. If any of you remember what it was like to be a trainee, maybe some of you have been to a class and there's just been so much information thrown at you and you're just like, okay, I'm done. I can't, you're full up. It's okay to anticipate that as you are presenting new information, your recipients are going to get to a point where there's no more. I can't. You've given me so much information. I need to sit and process it and take some notes and experience it and really reflect on it. So don't keep trying to jam that new information into their heads when they're done. And you'll recognize the signals, and they may even tell you, hey, you know what? I hear you're talking to me. All I'm hearing is clicking. That's a sign that maybe we're done. So just because you work an 8-hour shift, a 10-hour shift, a 12-hour shift, that doesn't mean that you're training all 8, 10, or 12 hours. Provide some breaks. Give them an opportunity to go, okay, I really need to kind of just sit for a bit. And recognize that if you continue to try to push this information down their throats when they're already kind of at that level, you're going to be frustrated, they're going to be frustrated, and it's really going to put a damper on the learning process. And then celebrate small successes. And sometimes they're going to be small, and it's okay. Recognize and understand and acknowledge when our employees are doing the right thing. Throughout my training experience over years and years and years, one of the things that I hear the most from line level and even upper management is a lack of acknowledgement and recognition for the great jobs that we do every day. And we need to get away from that. We need to stop waiting for admin to recognize us and turn to each one of us in our centers and everybody here on this session and say, thank you. You are awesome. You do amazing work every single day. And without you, none of this would work. So let me tell you from my little portion of this profession, thank you for the job that you do. Thank you for dedicating an hour of your time. Thank you for connecting with people that maybe you're never going to meet in your life, but you've already made some connections here. That is amazing. So, creative approaches. As we get toward the end, and I see my time is kind of getting close to the end, but I want to have you share here And remember, this is going to be on demand as well. So even if you're not watching this live, you can still see and understand some of the creative approaches that people are doing in their communication center. I saw earlier people are doing dispatch bingo. Awesome. Super simple. I've got some examples I can certainly send to you. But playing games, the Jeopardy that I will give to you. If you send me an email, I'll send you that. I saw an agency that had like a Uno card game, and they had to manipulate a deck of cards for a type of situation that they were learning. If we can make learning fun, it very often is more impactful for us. Going on ride-alongs, and not just, hey, I don't want to see you for 10 hours, so go and ride with this officer. Don't just send them out without any objective. Remember, adults need to understand the why. We need to focus some of that training. So, ride-along sheets, and I can share some that I have where the trainee or the person going on the ride-along has to look for specific things. And, for example, they've got to go to the trunk of the unit and identify 5 pieces of tactical equipment. And then they've got to take notes on it. They got to take a picture of it, because sometimes our tenured employees haven't been on a ride-along since they were trainees. Have things changed a little bit? Yeah. So have your trainee provide some of that training to our tenured employees. Have we just upped their value in the communication center? Absolutely. Scavenger hunts. Again, have them look for specific things. Have them go to the local high school and meet with the principal and get a map of the school and find out the ingress and egress points. Where is the park in your jurisdiction that has a blue slide, and send them to those places. Ready, set, and read. I love this, and I stole it from Doug Showalter of Showalter and Company, but I think this is such a great idea, is, that NCIC manual? Whew, yeah. All right. So if somebody says, okay, you got to read the NCIC manual. All right. Yeah, that's not happening. But if you have a policy or an NCIC entry that you have to do, make a game out of it. Okay. Hey, trainee. Hey, new person. We're going to enter a stolen boat, and I need you to find it in that NCIC manual and make it a game. Make it fun. Have that be interactive. Have them do something other than just reading, because sometimes that is not going to be how that information gets in their head. And I love this idea, 1 issue, 3 solutions. Everybody is a great problem identifier. We kind of struggle a little bit with being a problem solver. So if there's an issue, if there's something that you find in your center that needs to be changed, or you want to implement a new program, hey, come up with 3 solutions. Think of it with a different perspective. And don't just say, well, that sucks and I don't like it and we got to stop doing it. No, come to your supervisor, your manager, your director, your peer and say, hey, I think we could do this better. Help me come up with some more perspectives or solutions on how to address this issue. All right. So we are now at the questions area of this particular session. And it looks like I've got maybe about 5 minutes left. If you've got questions, if you've got something that you need from me later, I see some people have said, hey, send me that survey or whatever. I'm looking at somebody, Troy has said that he has trainees pull calls from another dispatcher and critique them for errors. I think that is a really great way to have people start to understand. And I say this in class, and I want you to be aware of this as well as you are going through your own situation, is sometimes we do come across things that maybe didn't go so well. And we may have that news story or that audio when somebody made a mistake. And I want to remind every single one of us here that we're not listening to any of those calls to point fingers and go, look at that guy, that was terrible. But how many of us learn more from our failures than we do our successes? And so if we can listen to somebody else, maybe not quite get it right, but we can then start to develop strategies. So when we handle that same call for service or that same situation, we've already thought about it and we've come up with a better approach. And I think that's awesome. And sometimes we get a little bit scared of that word fail. And for any of you who are people who go to the gym and work out and you're throwing weights around, when you go to the gym and you're lifting weights, what do you lift weights to? You lift to fail, right? You lift to where you can't even pick up that weight anymore because your muscles are so fatigued. You lift to failure. But then the next time you go to the gym, you can lift it one more time. And then the next time you go to the gym, you can lift it 2 more times. Don't be afraid of the word fail, because failure is an opportunity to get stronger, to get better. And we want to make sure that when things aren't going so right, we still acknowledge, okay, but tomorrow it's a better day. We're going to do things a little bit differently tomorrow. All right, last couple seconds here on my session. Because I am from Nina, and I highly, and one more time, highly recommend being a part of Nina. Here's some ways that you can connect with us. Go on the website, www.nina.org. Connect with us on Twitter or Facebook. We would love to come and have some in-person classes with you. I love to travel the country and meet all of you. It's phenomenal. We Speak Dispatch. I mentioned that before. We have, let me just show you right now. We have decals. So if you want a We Speak Dispatch decal, send us an email to that email listed there, and we will be more than happy to send one to you. Check us out on Facebook, and we also have some podcasts available. Here is my contact information. I got a couple different emails. Send me something. I will be more than happy to give you everything that I have. Thank you, Ricardo and Leah, and everybody who's been a part of this Dare to Be Great conference. Amazing, amazing. And thank all of you for being here, being a part of it. I am so excited that we have almost 1,800 people right here today who are looking to the future of our profession. So thank you very much. I hope you found this session informational, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon. I see Ricardo down in my little screen there, so hey.
There was one question that came in here. I'm going to go ahead and hit this button here, but it says, what do you do as a CTO to keep your certification active and keep you sharp if your agency goes through a hiring freeze?
And it's challenging. And depending on what the recommendations are at your agency, I know that some of our agencies require us to get recertified, where some don't. If you can connect with, and I love this idea of creating a CTO support group and just constantly interact with other CTOs, because there is so much new information that's coming out. Stay connected with those who work in that same profession that you do is a great way. And gosh, if you see a class, even if you took CTO 12 years ago and there's a new class coming in, see if you can get sent to it. But it's just being committed to, and I love that you asked the question, because it means that you're committed to learning more and being on the cutting edge, and I think that's awesome. So just stay connected with being a trainer.
Perfect. Your test there.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at it. Some of the questions I had a 1 and a 3, or a 1
Sure.
and a 2. So like I had 3, 1, and then 2. So that's where mine was at, and I thought, I got to do.
Yeah, and I thought, Ricardo is an auditory learner. Isn't that strange? No, but it truly is not a learning style that we see much, because none of us, and very few of us, can sit in a class and just listen to somebody lecture on and on and on and on and on and really get something from it. But you are a special person.
Apparently, because I felt the same way when I saw it. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, this was really good. I've got a bunch of information here as well, and just a bunch of stuff that I was typing as you were going through, and I was trying to type fast enough and then go back, and there were some people I saw in the comments that I don't know who said it, but somebody says, I've got a cramp in my hand from writing down so many notes, and I thought that was awesome too. So this was phenomenal. Thank you so much for doing this and sharing all of this information. And I wish to hell that I would have had you as a trainer back when I was in dispatch, because that would have been awesome. I'm just listening to you as you're doing your session, and I'm learning as well. I thought, yep, I wish I would have had Leslie as the trainer back in the day. That would have been awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, anybody who's out there and you need some information, send it to me. because I will be more than happy to give you everything that I have, because that's what we do. We share.
Of course.
Sometimes we overshare, but yeah.
For sure.
I'm here for you. Yep.
Also, with everybody else who is in the session right now, there were some people that were in there talking about what option you might have chosen when you registered. I am only able to see that afterward. I get it in an Excel sheet, so I wouldn't be able to tell you that right now, and I don't know if you would be able to see that either. The only thing I can say is when you registered, go to the email that said that you were registered. Maybe there's an option on there or something that actually says the options that you chose. So double check on that. And either way, those who selected yes to have their email go to the conference speakers, these are the conference speakers, not the vendor session hall speakers, only the conference speakers. So they will be the ones who end up getting that for any follow-up or anything after that. So again, thank you all very much for joining us. And as always, Leslie, it was great. And I will be taking all of you with me to the next session here in just a moment. Have a good one.
Have a good day. See y'all later.